Hi, these comments are for NU. I am Michael from OTC, OnlineTOEFLCourse.com. Thank you for doing your daily speaking practice. You sent me the practice test yesterday, and I'm going to listen to it right now. So let me get the integrated speaking rubrics here. Let's get right down to it.
The reading passage discusses social loafing, which is when people work together in groups, the individual group members feel less motivated to finish the task as they are not directly responsible for completing the task. In his lecture, Professor gives an example of a study to illustrate this concept. He says that two groups of people were given an ordinary task of peeling potatoes and as many potatoes
You want to say peeling.
as they can in a given amount of time, where one group was working alone and the other group was working together. After a while, it was seen that people who were working alone peeled more number of potatoes as compared to the people who were working together, which clearly illustrates that people who were working together peeled significantly fewer potatoes because they were less motivated than the people who were working alone, as they were directly linked or responsible for finishing the task.
Then you might want to say, thus, the example suggests that social loafing occurs when people are working in groups as opposed to when they're working alone or something. That was a good response. I think I'm going to put you at least. I'm going to say 24 to 26 right now. I think points on this one. Let's listen to it one more time. I'll try to break it up into smaller
The reading
parts.
passage discusses social loafing, which is when people work together in groups, the individual group members feel less motivated to finish the task as they are not directly responsible for completing the task.
So just pronounce that task. Task. You need to pronounce the T a little bit more clearly. So if you want in the beginning, you can get more ideas on how to do this. If you go to my online TOEFL course, go to Speaking Step 7. I want you to look over the lesson. It's called TOEFL Integrated Speaking Strategies Master Lesson, right? So in the beginning, you might say, well, in the reading passage, the author defines social loafing. And in the lecture, the professor gives an example to illustrate how it works in a study group or a group, something like that. So maybe in the introduction, don't just state the reading and what it's about, but state briefly the reading and the listening passage so we can kind of see what the relationship is, the connections there. So then it makes it easier to understand what's going to happen after the introduction.
In his lecture, Professor gives an example of a study to illustrate this concept.
How about this? The professor gives an example to illustrate how social loafing works.
He says that two groups of people were given an ordinary task of peeling potatoes and as many potatoes as they can in a given amount of time, where one group was working alone and the other group was working together. After a while, it was seen that people who were
Instead of where one group was working alone and where the other group was working together, I would put in which there instead of where. Usually, where is for specific geographical locations like cities, rivers, things of that nature.
working alone peeled more number of potatoes as compared to
I
the
would say
people
that.
who were
No, wait a minute. The people working alone peeled not a more number, a higher number. I think that's better word choice there. So the people working alone peeled a higher number of potatoes than those who worked in a group.
working together, which clearly illustrates that people who were working together peeled significantly fewer potatoes because they were less motivated than the people who were working alone, as they were directly linked or responsible for finishing the task.
Which coincides with social loafing that's defined in the reading passage. So you just at the end there, try to find time. Don't just explain the
The reading
example. Don't just explain the example there, but show near the end of it how it relates back to that definition you've already defined from the reading passage, so we can kind of integrate the two things together there at the end. That's right, integrate them in the beginning, the reading and the listening, then integrate the two sources near the end, and that completely kind of shows the overall connections between the most important points in the reading with the most important points in the listening passage. You have a good speaking practice test here. I feel good about it. I think you're speaking quickly, fluidly. You had some minor problems maybe with the T, the D, consonant sounds. Be careful about that. But for the most part, you had great control with delivery, also language use. Excuse me. Whew, sorry about that. But I think I like how you said they peeled fewer potatoes. The only problem you had in language use was a more number as opposed to a higher number. That was the only major problem you had in the whole response, right? Topic development was strong. I gave you a recommendation about something in the beginning and at the end of the response that you can do to kind of make it a little bit more connected and to show the explicit relationship between the two sources. But overall, I think it's a good response. So I stand by my score. I'm going to put you at about 24 to 26 points on this particular practice test.